This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder with 7 drive modes. The Pathfinder is built for even the most epic journeys. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Here we go.
Hi, Bashi.
Hi, Sufi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I just want to, we're recording this after we talked to our guest today, Alex Edelman. And you know what? I do eat my words about halfway through this episode because we talk a little bit about the stand-up comedy scene in Boston.
Yeah.
And you do that thing where you get like scoldy and unlikable and you tell us to get onto the Family Trips tip. And by the time we do, I'm going to say maybe he had more great family trips than anybody we've ever talked to, and we ran out of time. So just fully owning it. And one of the reasons I bring this up is I saw Mom and Dad this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and Dad listen to episodes of Family Trips while they're driving to see me and my family.
Yeah.
They had very, very high praise for Ben Schwartz.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I do too.
And I think, I think we saw that coming.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was going to be one. And Mom said to me, she goes, sometimes I get so antsy when people aren't talking about family trips. And I want to yell at the car radio, get back to the trips. So, what I'm saying is, we all give Josh a hard time, but just know he's, this is a real nurture thing. This came from our mom, who's always, even as kids, she was very single-minded. She always said when we were little, if a podcast says it's going to be about something, it should only be about something.
I mean, I like that you say that we all give Josh a hard time. I don't know who the all is, because I feel like what I keep hearing out in the world is that there's a lot of support for my trying to
the people,
keep it on track.
I mean me and the silent majority, the people that don't want to, that aren't going to like come up to you at your weird vegan grocery store and be like, hey man, let them talk about what they want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. Well, you listen to this episode and
but again, I was wrong. And again, I like talking to Alex about everything, but
so charming.
I feel like we scratched the surface.
Yeah.
So he was an absolute joy. And also a real joy to see Mom and Dad this weekend.
Yeah, how was that?
It was great. It's always really great to see him. We had a very nice time with kids and
Nice.
A+.
Games? Were you guys gaming around? I knew you were sort of reined in one day.
I will say Dad, to his credit, Dad had knee surgery and we sort of have a hill that goes up to the basketball. We have a little tiny basketball hoop.
Uh-huh.
And the boys now have it in their head that they like to play basketball. And they don't like
fun.
to play basketball at the same time. But both boys wanted to play with Dad. And he had to do this like sort of long walk up to the hoop. And then I would say somewhere between 30 to 45 seconds into it, the boys decided they were done playing.
Oh.
And then he had to walk all the way down and then the other one. But he just was like great grandfather service.
Yeah.
Top to bottom.
Did he bring his, I bought them, Mom and Dad both, like hiking sticks for a Christmas
They did
a couple
not have
years ago.
sticks. They didn't have sticks.
Golly. Come on.
Yeah.
That's a perfect time to use your sticks. I use sticks when I hike. Like if I hike something that needs it, and definitely if I just had meniscus surgery.
And you know how like when the 2 or 3 times people have come up to you and been like, hey, those are cool sticks.
Uh-huh.
Everyone else has thought you're a dork.
Well,
again,
I will say
much
this.
like they haven't. Yeah, go ahead.
By
the way.
Yeah, go ahead. No.
I was just joking. I think sticks are great. Go ahead.
When I hike with my sticks, I'm in places that you definitely want them. And people that don't have them, I'll be hiking on trails and you'll see people in jeans and you'll see people with, improper shoes. And those people are in trouble and they're not having as much fun as I am. And they're not seeing as much as I am because they have to look down at roots and rocks and the dumb flats that they're wearing instead of proper.
Here's the 2 things
footwear.
I need. When I go hiking, 2 things I make sure I bring. My Crocs and a growler full of IPA. A big old glass growler.
Yeah.
I like to have it in the glass.
And an external
beer.
and a speaker to play your jams.
An external speaker that I have to carry.
To play your pop hits.
Yeah. And that's only because my boombox is in the shop.
Right.
Yeah. No, they didn't have any sticks. It was great. There is a thing, the Ponkas. Oh, there's a really nice development, which is, the boys called mom and dad Ponka, Yeri, and Ponka Hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Addie, in that great development, Addie calls them Ponka, Yeri, and Hurry Potter.
Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because the boys talk about Harry Potter a lot.
Yeah.
So she called her Hurry Potter. I think not realizing she wasn't doing wordplay.
Right. But it
She
is
just thought
wordplay. Yeah.
It is wordplay, and so it made everybody laugh. So it's a real winner.
Yeah. It's the kind of wordplay that, for those of us, ourselves included, when we drop some wordplay on, maybe we should be a little less proud of ourselves if
That a baby.
if a baby's stumbling into like a good one. It's like, oh yeah,
That's a
these
real
are
good
sort
one.
of,
Yeah.
you kind of teed up for some of these sometimes.
We have a lot of words that mom and dad still say because we said it as kids.
Mm-hmm.
So my niece Agnes came over dressed in a full princess suit. And so what did mom and dad call her? They didn't call her princess. They called her a...
Princess.
No, Prinsa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Princess. You thought princess?
Oh yeah, no, Prinsa.
Prinsa. So, and it was explained to the kids that when you were a baby, obviously you've grown out of it based on the fact that I teed it up and you put it in the... let it roll to the backstop. Prinsa is what you said when you were a kid, and so they still say Prinsa.
Mm-hmm.
And Addie's birthday was not during the school year, so she did not have a birthday party at school. She had what they call a special day, but she called it a feshel day. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to call special feshel for, the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, you hold on to it for as long as you can, and then you'll try to convince
course.
your kids to say it like that, and then one day they'll forget
Well,
it.
that's the thing. They outgrow it, and you're still saying oranges instead of oranges, and they're like, what the fuck's wrong with you? You're
Yeah.
like, I've learned it from you.
Yeah. Yeah, our buddy Finn that used to say dogs would sloober. I know
Sloober?
Alexi was
Still say
like,
sloober?
Alexi loved sloober, and then when she eventually heard him say slobber, she was like, oh,
Yeah.
he got it right now.
Sloober's a better word for it.
Yeah.
And some other breaking news.
Mhm.
Should we break news on the pod?
Yeah, we have a venue selected for the wedding, and we are getting our ducks in a row, and we're going to be sending out save the dates. And we got to figure out invitations. We got to figure out our guest list. It's stressful, but we're very excited. Yeah, so we're full speed ahead, and it's exciting. It's a little stressful, but we're trying not to let it be too stressful.
Mm-hmm.
We've already had a couple moments where we can sort of sense some tension between us, and we've been able to laugh that off because we know
that's good.
we know exactly what it is born from.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're both giving each other a bit of a longer lead.
Are you worried that dad will be at a gas station and the guy on the pump next to him will be wearing a Steelers hat and he'll strike up a conversation with him and then he'll call you and say he would like him to get an invite?
I don't think that's going to happen. I hope that's not going to happen. He's definitely going to talk to that guy if that guy's wearing
He's
a
definitely going
Steelers.
to talk to that guy.
Yeah.
If you're that guy, don't worry. My dad's going to talk to you.
Yeah. That's very exciting.
Can't wait. Also, we made an error. Could I reference an error we made?
Oh yeah, we don't usually like to admit to our errors.
No, exactly.
But we made one.
We were raised by Larry Myers.
Yeah.
And we have been taught not no. We had J.K. Simmons and his wife Michelle Schumacher on the show, and I said they were our first married couple. We also had Paula Pell and Janine Brito, and thank you. A lot of our listeners pointed that out.
Yeah, blew it.
We blew it.
And
I mean,
we're
in our
owning it.
defense, 95% of our listeners are hardcore Christian nationalists.
But they love our sponsors.
They love our sponsors.
And they support them.
Apologies to Janine and Paula, one of my favorite married couples.
Yeah.
Also mom and dad, but I feel like, if you can call that a marriage.
They're over 50 years. They're crushing it.
They are crushing it. You know what? They are crushing it.
Yeah.
Still, you know what's amazing?
Huh.
50 years, they've still never used those sticks. 50 years of marriage, they haven't even unwrapped the sticks you got them.
Well, one day. A boy can dream.
Yeah.
A son can dream that the gifts
A
he
son can
buys
dream.
to make his parents' life better and easier will eventually.
You know what? There's another path. You know what the other path is?
Don't buy him anything.
Don't get him shit. I came so close to clicking buy now on those sticks. And then I thought, I bet they'll never use them.
Yeah, you'd be right.
Also, I think I really love talking to Alex. And let me just say, because we talk about it a little bit, I can't say enough about Alex Edelman has a special called Just For Us on HBO. It's this wonderful stage show he did. He's a really funny comedian. This is way more than just a stand-up special. He tells a story about basically going to an event at a white nationalist's house. And very rarely do you watch something this funny that also has such a nice dramatic thrust to it. So do check out Just For Us. That's available on Max. And first, why don't you listen to some Jeff Tweedy?
Family trips with the Myers brothers. Family trips with the Myers brothers. Here we go.
There he is.
Hey.
Brookline's finest.
Oh my gosh. Conan's here?
So,
Wait, John Hodgman's here?
Hodgman too. Well, there you go.
I do love Hodgman.
I am like the 9th most successful comedian from Brookline. It kind of sucks.
It's a hot pocket.
We come from a hot pocket, because we kind of have Sandler and Silverman
Oh my
from
God,
our
that's
neck of the
right.
woods in New Hampshire, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's right. I forgot that you're from where in New Hampshire?
We're in Bedford, but we went to high school in Manchester, where Adam's from. But Silverman belongs to Bedford, so it's a good gang.
Josh, I'm such a fan. It's so nice to finally meet you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You've never met. Look at this.
Oh, here we
Alex,
are.
with the photo of us together at a Red Sox game. Where's that? Where you had the photo of you and Fallon. We met at a Red Sox game, but we were not photographed together?
I don't know that we were photographed together, but I saw you host the Red Sox team dinner when I was working there.
Yeah.
Wow.
That went really well.
That must have been between 2003 and 2007 is the only thing that I can figure on.
It was,
Those were-
I feel
those
like
were
it
good
was.
years.
Yeah, good years.
Yeah.
I think it was maybe a breakfasty type thing because I remember, I feel like it was before they won. So it was between 3 and 4. They had not won rings yet.
Part of me thinks it was after we had won the World Series. And
Yeah,
it was
you
opening-
know what? I think you're right.
I think it was the team's opening dinner for the next year. But I remember you crushed. And even then I had not started comedy yet, but I remember thinking, this is not an easy gig.
Yeah. I would not think a baseball dinner would be where you want to do a tight 10. Because I'm sure they're not giving you 5. I'm sure they want you to do a little more.
I did Pedro Martinez's charity dinner last year, and I was getting nothing, and then I started making jokes about the ball players, and then they were all ears, and that was the
Yeah.
that was the.
I remember the only joke I remember is that Johnny Damon's book was called Idiot. Is that right?
Yes.
And I said, yet another thing he has in common with Dostoevsky.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know we were at that first game of the season after they won the World Series because we were sitting on monster seats, and Doug Mirabelli hit a homer, ripped it, and our dad tried to catch it barehanded, and it hit both of his hands so cleanly and dropped out of them. And someone else got the ball, and then he had to hold 2 bags of ice because his hands were swelling up.
It was
Little
also
bear paws.
freezing
It
cold.
was freezing cold.
And I was not on the wall seats for that moment because me and Mike Schur had gone to buy jackets in the the sports store in Fenway. The sports store. That's what they're called, right? You worked at Fenway sports store?
Yeah. We called it the sports store. People were going to go down to the sports store for some Boston Red Stockings baseball hats.
So We are obviously going to talk about family trips, but we were an hour from Fenway, and that was, not maybe a full trip, but it was a huge deal for us to go to Red Sox games. How often, when you were a kid, did you guys go?
My parents do not like baseball. My parents are polite about my love of baseball. And when I was a kid, when I got a job there at the Red Sox when I was like 13 or 14, I'd bring my dad to ball games, which is a nice role reversal for her. What usually a 13-year-old isn't like, Dad, we're gonna go down to Fenway today, and Dad's like, oh boy, like usually the other way around. But I bring my dad down to Fenway, and it was cool for him for a little while. And then once he brought a Tom Clancy novel, and he sat there leafing through, like hunting for the Red October while the Red Sox were playing, and I was up in the press box doing some work because I'd leave I heard one of the announcers making fun of my dad because he was on camera in the employee seats, But so my parents took me very rarely. Sorry, it was a long tangent, but
no, it's good. This is all about long tangents as long as your family's involved.
My parents took me very rarely, but my grandparents, my dad's parents, took me and loved the atmosphere and had my grandmother in particular, who was a Chicago Cubs fan and a Red Sox fan and died the year before the Red Sox won the World Series. Was born the year after they won. My grandmother rooted for my unlucky grandmother rooted for the Cubs and the Red Sox her entire life. But she loved the Sox and took me to a bunch of games. And I think my first game was in August of 95. So I would have been 6 years old. And Fenway was special. And whenever we went to a city that had a ballpark, though, my parents were always good about it. I saw a game at the Montreal Expos field a couple of times.
Yeah, I did that. Stadium, right?
Yes. And
big.
So big and such a horrible place to watch. You know what's so funny? When you're a kid, I genuinely I remember my sense memories of ball games are mostly of being a little opinionated bitch. Where it's just I'm in Olympic Stadium, this is cavernous and not a good atmosphere. I'm 11 years old with these hot takes on architecture. I'm like, you know what? If only the stadium felt a little less impersonal, maybe they could really do something here.
Well, you were coming out of a Fenway existence, which, is a pretty great ballpark. So to see something else, to see another ballpark and be like, oh, wait, they're not all as sort of charming or as storied or as beloved.
We went the other way. Our first game was at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. And
my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because our dad's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But that was you go to Fenway after that and you realize, oh, okay, this is why poets have written essays about this stadium. And there's no famous, there's no famous John Updike, a lyric
Little band
recreation
box.
of something, right?
That's
about
right.
this, it looks like an upside down, whatever, birthday cake.
But it's so funny. Three Rivers Stadium. My mentor at the Red Sox, a guy named Larry Lucchino, who just passed away, actually.
Yes.
Sweet
Rest
man.
in peace, Larry.
Yeah, he was a really wonderful guy. Larry liked to say that he built his additions to Fenway Park were the things that he wanted as a child at Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh.
Oh, wow.
So Fenway Park is sort of based on this dream of Fenway Stadium's renovations are sort of based on the things that Lucchino thought he might like to have as a young person in growing up in Squirrel Hill. So, God, what a baseball heavy start to.
That's all right. I mean,
Yeah.
we were not going to miss the opportunity to connect on our New England roots. I will
Not
say,
at all.
I recently saw Larry, and he told me, I hope I'm remembering the story right, that his mom would, whenever his mom saw Bob Kraft, would give him a hard time about the Patriots being a bunch of cheaters, which I liked. That Larry Lucchino's Pittsburgh mom was still busting on Bob Kraft.
She was so funny and so sharp. And Menino, who was the mayor of Boston, who was depending on who you ask, a complete idiot or one of the smartest mayors in American history. By the way, the answer may have been both, which is
Yes.
that he only ever wanted to be the mayor of Boston, had no other aspirations, and once he became the mayor of Boston, only wanted to help the city and also had a limited attention span. Like, he was always at this ice cream place in Faneuil Hall every Wednesday. Once I mentioned that after he died to someone who worked for him, they went, "Oh, well, Wednesday mornings we do budgets." And the mayor didn't really have a great attention span. So we'd promise him ice cream after the budget. He's a 7-year-old child. The mayor of Boston got ice cream at Slugger's dugout underneath Faneuil Hall.
And solved your problems. Solved the civic problems that you needed solved.
But again, even as like a kid, I remember seeing Mayor Menino eating bubblegum flavored ice cream. You know, like the blue ice, for some reason, the bubblegum flavor is always blue with like little like pink pieces of bubblegum in it. I saw Menino eating pink like pulling a piece of pink bubblegum out of bubblegum flavored ice cream. And I'm like, what sicko eats bubblegum ice cream? What freak?
There are so many. Your special is so wonderful. And it was, an incredibly well-regarded stage show as well. And there's so many wonderful details about your family. And I do want to pull from it without burning anything in the special.
Please.
But your parents, Eleazar and Cheryl, where did they grow up?
So my dad grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts. Just a 25-minute walk away from where I grew up. And we walked a lot because we'd go over on Shabbos and we weren't able to drive. So there was that. My mother grew up in a part of Cincinnati called Amberley Village. And so I have a Midwestern mom and a sort of East Coast Bostonian dad.
And your grandparents were a huge part of your upbringing.
Enormous. My father's parents were, sometimes I get annoyed at the word grandparents because I feel like for me and maybe other people, maybe many other people, it doesn't fully service the amount. It implies a sort of like, biannual visit and sort of like really like Dutch uncle qualities of like, hey, sport. But like my grandparents were like serious parts of my upbringing. They were like very, very, which is what you literally just asked me word for word. But yeah, they were.
Well, I think that's an interesting distinction. You don't hear that much because I will say that I think Josh and I had grandparents the way people classically say it, whereas I feel like my wife had exactly what you had. And
you almost want to call them great grandparents, but then that's
a whole different. They've ruined it by stealing that for the other thing. Because we weren't allowed to say super old grandparents.
Yeah.
But Seth, do you feel like your grandparents? I feel like this is like a nice cliche that happens to be true for like many, many, many people, which is that my grandparents were the vacation from the parenting rules that every kid kind of needs. Where like, we weren't allowed TV after a certain hour, but when we were at my grandparents' house, that's when we could, do that. Or we weren't allowed certain foods, but like my grandfather always had a box of graham crackers in a specific place. And even when he was really, really unwell the last couple, for him, he was sharp to the end, thank God. But like whenever we went into his house, almost as a show of normalcy for him, we would go over to that place where he kept the graham crackers and eat, and like open the cabinet. And as we're saying, like, how's it going, Papa? Everyone would take a graham cracker and eat a graham cracker almost as like a sort of like very Ashkenazi communion wafer. We had to have this like, sort of like entrance ritual to my grandparents' house. But yeah, they were a vacation, my grandma, my grandpa.
I know this isn't like specific, but I do think the one connection between like Alexi's grandparents and yours is like Judaism, because our grandmother was really waspy on our mom's side. Our grandmother on our dad's side was really Catholic. And, our Jewish grandfather we barely knew because he passed away like when we were very young. So it does feel like that. Like everybody is a parent, was definitely a part of her upbringing. And it sounds like a part of yours as well.
Well, she's a human rights attorney, yes, right? Like
yes.
Like Alexi's a very selfish woman. But
very selfish. Take.
Would she say that like, would she like, I think I ascribe a lot of like my moral backbone to my grandparents. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, also, They were survivors. They were Holocaust survivors.
Mm.
Her grandparents. And then they were, it seemed like, especially her grandfather, like, believed like one of his roles was like to educate and like to go speak about his story anywhere he was ever invited to tell it. And, she grew up in New Mexico, but he was just this vital part of the New Mexican, Jewish community.
Wow.
And it's just very, I sadly never met him, but he does seem like a person that I don't feel like Alexi is trying to make him proud, because I don't think he ever would have not been. But I do feel like she is very much trying to live on a path that of the values that they had.
What's so interesting is, and I don't know that I've ever talked about this, so I'm sure, I think my dad will be okay with me saying this, but, my grandmother passed when I was, like 12, 13 years old, and was really my first sort of sense of loss, which was a shame. But, that's what grandparents do, right? Grandparents sadly die, right? They're not going to like graduate like grandparents.
Right,
like,
yeah.
The thing that they do, my friend Alfie always points that out, is like grandparents, they're supposed to die. Like you're supposed to lose your grandparents. Otherwise, like something else is going, like it's the best case. Weirdly, the best case scenario is that you meet your grandparents, you have some time with them, and then they die.
And it's sort of like, not trivial, but like it is almost like training wheels grief. Like it's not, it's
really,
not
It's more hardcore
grief.
than a gerbil.
Right, but it matters. It like is deeply felt, and it's an important thing to happen.
Someone told me, by the way, not to totally, it's just too good not to mention. My friend Liz was telling me that somebody in a friend of their friend group, they had a turtle, and the turtle died, and the kids are like 9, 10 years old, and so they buried the turtle as sort of like a training wheel for grief.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went back to they wanted to visit, Shelley's grave or whatever. So they
Wonderful
go back
turtle name.
Yeah, they go back like 4 days later, and the turtle's alive.
Oh man.
And they're like, that teaches you all the wrong lessons about death.
But it teaches you all the right lessons about Christianity.
Oh my God.
The turtle came back, and then the turtle comes back. And that's the most important thing, as long as you believe in the turtle.
All hail Shelley.
All hail Shelley.
Oh my God, I'm stealing that so much. Oh my God.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors.
Family Trips is supported by GameTime. Hey, Pashi,
Yes, Sufi.
you love a concert.
I love concerts, and I buy a lot of tickets for a lot of concerts, and sometimes I buy those tickets just right when they come on sale, and then the show rolls around and I'm not able to go because I'm not in town or whatever, and that's kind of a bummer. But a smarter approach I found is using GameTime.
You love a smarter approach.
I love a smarter approach. And GameTime makes getting tickets for concerts and events faster and easier, even if you don't buy tickets right away, because prices on the GameTime app actually go down the closer it gets to the show's start time.
And another thing GameTime has, which I appreciate, is last-minute deals. Sometimes I'll realize, staring at one of my kids, there's a game in town. And instead of just staring at them for the next few hours, I can give them a memory that they would remember forever. And you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc.
Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code TRIPS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code TRIPS for $20 off. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
This episode of Family Trips is supported by the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder.
From muddy jungle paths to snowy trails to rolling sand dunes, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has the capability to take you to some of the most epic destinations on Earth.
And we're excited to once again partner with Nissan because, as our listeners know, this podcast, Family Trips, is occasionally a podcast about trips and about the joy of having adventures and exploring new places and making memories.
And there's no better vehicle for chasing bigger, better, and more exciting adventures than the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. With 7 drive modes, the Pathfinder is available. Intelligent 4-wheel drive is built for even the most epic journeys.
And it even has up to 6,000 pounds of towing capacity, so you can bring the fun with you.
But Nissan also knows that it's not just about where you go. In a Pathfinder, the real fun comes from getting there.
Very well said, Pashi. Whether getting there is a new physical place or just the end of an amazing story told by one of our guests.
That's why we're excited to partner with Nissan to celebrate adventurers everywhere.
So thanks again, Nissan, for supporting family trips and for the reminder to chase bigger, better, more exciting adventures and enjoy the ride along the way. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Intelligent four-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
Here we go.
Your brothers are 2 years and 6 years younger?
2 and 8.
2 and 8. And are you guys are you super close?
I'm closest with the youngest one, to be honest. The other brother and I are like we're friendly and I respect him, but maybe we're so close in age that we just like disagree on everything. Where it's like I volunteered for Obama, he volunteered for Romney. Like I
Gotcha.
am, like, you know, I'm surprised that he's still a boy. Like I'm like he. Like I think he just truly want to go in the other direction every single way. But I mean he's an athlete of great distinction. He made the Olympics for Israel, which no surprise he and I don't completely agree on politically. Yeah, I'm actually raising money for Hezbollah. I'm joking.
And we are going to put a link up.
Hezbollah's Patreon. You know.
Your special is so much more than just great jokes because it is this incredible story. With that said, there are so many great jokes. So by asking you to burn this one great joke, I don't feel like I'm ruining this. You mentioned your brother is a athlete for the Israeli national team. He is a skeleton. What do you even call it? A skeleton racer?
Skeleton. Yeah, he does skeleton.
He does skeleton. You have the most
That's
wonderful.
one of the sliding sports.
It's
He's
one
a
of the
slider.
sliding. It's the best chunk about skeleton. You didn't know you needed it, and it's so. I'm just jealous. You know what? I'll say it. I was so fucking mad Josh wasn't in skeleton. I was watching you crush, and I'm like, what a gift that your brother did skeleton.
Do you know? It's so. I'm blown away that you watched a special. Honestly, like I really can't believe that you did.
It's
I'm
so
really,
good.
really thrilled. But like, holy moly, man, really. But like, but look, I try to. People always go, "How does your family feel about you doing material about them?" And for the most part, my material is actually like extremely either loving or like almost humble braggy about like. I make fun of my Olympian brother, which is which all I do is like you'd have to be. People are like, "How does he feel about you burning him?" And I'm like, burning him by mentioning to a national television audience that he made the Olympics in a very difficult sport. I think he's chill, you know.
Yeah.
like it's You're like, how do you feel about your dad telling this? There's a story in the special, which is probably my favorite story, about having Christmas for a woman who had nowhere else to go for the holiday. My Jewish family had Christmas for this woman. And people are like, how do your parents feel about you making fun of them? I'm like, for them doing this extremely outside the box, altruistic thing that is an extremely high indication of character, I think they have managed to deal with it. But which isn't to say that comedy families don't do comedy families like they're tying a yellow ribbon around a mic stand or something like that. But like comedy families don't deal with a lot, but I think that and yeah, by the way, I misrepresent them for humor's sake quite a bit.
Of course. Sure.
But, yeah, like I'm an only child, but I honestly I'm not even Jewish.
I get misrepresented in Seth's stand-up, and I'm fine with it.
But it's also
Of
like,
course.
it's not making the Olympics, but I have jokes about Josh being vegan. And I think you're very proud about being vegan. You don't hate that the word gets out, right?
Me? No,
Yeah.
I don't care.
So what I mean. It's kind of the same, right? Like I get a few little burns in, but the main gist of it is a positive thing about you.
Yeah, 1,000%.
How often do your parents come? How many times did they see Just for Us?
I think my parents have probably seen it like 9 times or something.
That's
like
great.
that.
That's
Like,
the part. That's all. That says everything, right? That they can come and see it 9 times.
They saw it 9 times, and also, it but the funny thing is, each one they came to, it was a special one, or it made it special for them, maybe even more. But you know what's so great is I looked in the audience at the last show that they saw at the County Center in late March, and they were laughing, and I was like, glad that they still, at least. I had a director named Adam Brace, who's my closest pal, and we worked together for a long time. And Adam probably saw the show 50 times, much more, many more, or would listen to the show. Actually, 50 seems about right, but and Adam listened to the show a bunch, and he was a great collaborator, and he would laugh. But he and I were laughing at he would laugh sometimes in the show, and hearing his laugh, which is very distinctive, would make me laugh. But the thing that we were laughing at wasn't the joke. It was the difference in how I did the joke that revealed either our conversation about the way that the joke should be performed, or, like something that we had worked on really hard and I really had to nail, and I messed up as soon as I got on stage. You know what I mean? Like He was laughing at me whiffing at something. Like there was a line that I figured out only worked if I said it a specific volume. If I yelled it didn't work. If I muttered it didn't work. It didn't work. And I went on stage and I said the line exactly the right volume, but with the words all in the wrong order. And I had to stop for a minute because Adam was laughing so hard in this 200 seat room. Everyone's like, that sentence made no sense. Why is this guy losing his mind? He wasn't laughing at it. So my parents, my parents, they laugh, I think, they're watching a different show after the fifth time.
My producer, Mike Shoemaker, who will always say, can you tell when I'm laughing? And I'll always say, yeah, because you're the only one. Every time you laugh, no one else is laughing. But the one on our show, which is that same thing where you're over-focused on one, is if there's a name that I'm nervous I'm going to say wrong, I blow the follow-up name. So... I'll be like, Chiwetel Ejiofor, get it right. And then I'll be like, and Ike Blarnholtz. Meanwhile, we've known Ike Blarnholtz for a million years.
You're like, yes, Oscar nominees were Yuichi Sakamoto and Len B. Ben Lee, it's...
So what, growing up, were you a trip family?
We would go we were such a trip family, and I had a joke about it that I haven't done on stage in a long time. Maybe I only did it once or twice, but it makes me wonder. We were such a family that it makes me wonder why people don't go why America hasn't been back to the moon more. Because every couple years my mom would be like, we should go to Fort Lauderdale. And I'd be like, why? And she was like, to see if there are any new kosher restaurants. And I was like, that's why you go to Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, why aren't we going to the moon more? To be like, maybe there's a butterfly preserve now. We went back to Fort Lauderdale because they put in a butterfly preserve. The moon, we should see what's going on.
See what's going on there, yeah.
But my mom isn't just we're not just a family trip family. There was also the post-mortem photo album that nobody ever cracked open ever again, which is hey, yes, this trip. My poor mom, because I travel for a living. So now the last thing I want to do is travel extraneously. So what I do is I will try to wrap work around, or wrap a personal interest trip that I have to take around a family trip. I'll route tour shows around and then they'll be like, oh great, we'll come. And I'm like, no, this is not for you to come to. This is me working out new material, or it'll be some weird corporate gig. And my mom will be like, oh no, I've always wanted to see,
entertain the people at Deloitte and Touche.
Exactly. My parents have come to corporates. My parents have been my parents came to a corporate in Baltimore.
Love having my parents at shows. Let me stress, I love having it. But if I try a new joke, there's no way to not get my dad to say, I don't think that worked. And I'm like, yeah, I also know now.
It's a new joke. My parents...
I found out at the same time as you that it didn't work.
There's a show in Boston that was the first comedy show I went to. It's called Comics Come Home. Dennis Leary runs it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I got to do... And Comics Come Home was the first show I ever saw. I was 13 or 14. It made me want to be a comedian because all of them seemed like they were having so much fun. And I got to do it a couple of years ago. And I've done it the last 2 years, actually. And it's at the place where the Bruins play. My dad is a big hockey fan, and we all play hockey. And so I brought my parents down. And this past year, they went, I don't think that went as well as the year before. And I was like,
yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
So good, our parents did a really good job of bringing us to see comedy when we were little.
Really?
And I'm wondering if you managed to catch, I mean, you were interested at a young age. So maybe, do you remember Steve Sweeney? Did you ever see Steve Sweeney?
Oh my God. I think I have the best Steve Sweeney story.
Steve Sweeney, for those who have never heard,
we're going to do this. Yeah. All right. We're going to do this Steve Sweeney story. Then we're talking about family trips.
This all counts. Josh, this is our parents brought us to.
It's really
Barnstormers
talking stand up. But
we were with our parents. Oh my God, it wasn't like, this isn't even about performing. This is about being young people and having parents who support us. Anyway.
Right. I'm just saying, Steve Sweeney.
Steve Sweeney is a sort of OG Boston stand-up. He's everything you think Boston people are if you've never been to Boston.
Jokes about Dunkin' Donuts and the Big Dig and I'll have a lodge,
And the one time we saw him at a place called Barnstormers, and I just remember there was like 5 minutes about like, you made it big when you're playing Barnstormers. Just hardest my mom's maybe ever laughed. All right, so what's your Steve Sweeney story? And then we'll get back to family trips. God forbid.
No. I mean,
do you not have enthusiasm for it after Josh just crumbled?
No. I went to go see him at the Kowloon off Route 1 in Saugus. Not to brag. And it's although the Kowloon is the biggest Chinese restaurant in the world. I assume there are some restaurants in China that would really want to quibble with that, but it is often reported as the biggest Chinese restaurant in the world. And they have a comedy club in the attic, which is huge, very sizable. And I run into Sweeney, and Sweeney goes, Alex, I got a new joke. And by the way, Steve is a brilliant comedian, one of the best to ever do it in the city of Boston, but also has a bunch of tried and true material.
Yes.
And I'm in the back, and he breaks into this new joke, which is, to be fair, a great joke. And there's this guy sitting there in the back row, last row, and he's got his arm around his wife or his girlfriend or whatever. And big guy. And he looks at Steve Sweeney, and he looks at his girlfriend, and he looks confused. And after a minute, he just leaned in and went, I don't know this joke. Like, he was furious that it was like, he wasn't there to see new material.
I don't want new stuff. Play the hits.
He was there to see the opening 5, which is always, you made it big when you're playing the Kowloon, the attic of a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was such a funny, perfect thing. But I'm sorry. My parents never took me to see, actually, my parents took me to see Robert Klein when I was younger. Right? At the JCC in Newton. And it was exactly I was the youngest person there by like 50 years, but it was because my parents knew that I loved comedy really early. But no, we were not, I don't know that my parents just sort of let me do my thing, comedy wise, probably.
All right. So Fort Lauderdale, that was an annual. Would you guys go to Florida often?
We would go somewhere. Yeah, my grandparents lived there, and so we go to Cincinnati a lot until my grandparents moved to Pembroke Pines. It was called Century Village, but everyone called it Cemetery Village, which was not cute.
Yeah,
but I did not like Florida. We would go often to where the grandparents were, but we took memorable trips to, as adults, the trips get better when you're adults, actually. I think the family trips get better and they become way less frequent. They become annual if you're lucky, for me, or biannual if you're really lucky. But yeah, my family took a trip to Japan, Tokyo, which is right after I got staffed on a television show. My mom was like, I had a week off, and I mentioned to my mom the minute I found out I was getting this job, I was like, can we go, somewhere? We would go to Israel a lot.
And would you go, was that when is once a year a lot? Like how often?
We go to Israel probably once every year or year and a half. We have a lot of family there. But it almost doesn't count as vacation, really. That's the thing. Do these family trips count if you're going to see a specific relative?
Yeah, we still count it.
Yeah.
Would you look forward to the Israel trips? Was that family that you had a good time hanging out with?
They were so different from me in almost every way, almost. But yeah, I did. I think my love of strangeness was built by family trips. I really loved the weird. I really loved the weirdness. I remember once I was out on the street in Israel with a Game Boy. This is how long ago it was. It was not even a Game Boy Color. And there was talking to this Arab kid in his limited English and my very limited Arabic. I spoke a little bit. Kid didn't spoke a couple words of Hebrew. I spoke a couple words of Hebrew. So we're mostly like conversing in Hebrew mixed with Arabic and English. And this kid was trying to trade me his keychain game, like a Tamagotchi style snake keychain game for my Game Boy. And even at like 11 years old, I knew that it was such an unfair trade, but I couldn't immediately kibosh it.
Right.
Like, I couldn't and I also didn't want to like Bob Kraft with Vladimir Putin style, like give it to him to play and thinking that he was going to like. So I held the Game Boy while he played on the Game Boy for a little bit. And like, I remember just like feeling that intense moment of connection with someone over something that was so completely not in either of our worlds. You know what I mean? Like just, I remember standing in the street in this like neighborhood in East Jerusalem, like holding this Game Boy while like this, while this like Israeli Arab kid played. And so like, I think that I've been chasing sort of that for a long time. Does that make any sort of sense?
It does.
Like,
when you were on trips like that, were you the kind of kids that had the freedom to like go out and do your own thing?
My parents, it is a miracle I have not been murdered. Like I am, so even like looking back at some of my like formative memories in Boston where my parents were like, hey, yeah, go do whatever it is you need to do. I was like, whatever it is I need to do, I'm 13. Are you like letting me? I was the ball boy for the Boston College men's basketball team. I would I was like 12 years old, literally 12. There was a guy named Troy Bell who was on the team who was very good. And I'd rollerblade down there wearing like my own sweats and a Boston College t-shirt. And like, I would rollerblade the like 45 minutes to BC. And then afterwards, sometimes like a stranger would take me home, like a relative, like stranger who worked for the program. But usually my dad picked me up. But in retrospect, like I didn't have a cell phone. I would just like go. But yeah, when we were on family trips, sometimes I'd say to my parents as like a teenager, I'd be like, I'm going to go do my own thing. And my parents would be like, okay, try to be back for XYZ. Like,
and when you did that, would the four of them be hanging out together? Were you just a total outlier or were your brothers also?
You know what? It actually is a point of guilt that you have. I have sometimes, even on our most recent adult family trip, sometimes I like go do my own thing and my parents and my brothers hang out together. I try to be there for highlights of the trip, but sometimes, or I try to like drag them.
Now, your argument is when you're there, that's the highlight. So you're like, anytime I'm here.
Hey, everybody, it's Alex time.
Listen, they're getting for free what the gentleman at Deloitte and Touche has to pay for, you know? That is a joke. I don't really think that about. But like sometimes I will arrange for something on a family trip thinking that it's like a really cool thing. And they'll be like, I was in Japan doing a pottery apprenticeship and my parents.
Like you do?
Yeah, of course. Why not? My family was there. It was one of those things that I had to go do. And there was like a family trip wrapped around it, like a few days before my parents were there. And I had to go, and I thought I'd go sometime in November, but my parents were going to be there in December. So I delayed it a couple of weeks to go do this thing. And so my family was in Tokyo, but I was like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to have to like split off for a few days to go to this like rural village and like sleep on a floor. And like, so did that. But when I got to Japan, the guy who is the ambassador to Japan now is Rahm Emanuel.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
So like, and And the person that like owns the agency that I'm at, who I've like met like one time in passing, his brother is Ari Emanuel, is Rahm Emanuel's brother. Yeah. So I get to Japan and somehow like get invited to the ambassador's residence. Like I mentioned to my agent or someone that I was going to Japan. I got like a DM from someone being like, come by the ambassador's. So I say to my family, like, hey, we're going to go to the ambassador's residence for like lunch at this hour. And they were like, to my family's credit, they're like, we have plans. And I was like, could you move them? And they were like, no. They're like, we want to see our friend Midori. And Midori is like, this is when Midori can meet. So we'll be there when we're there. And my parents showed up like, I show up. It's me, the Emanuels of Japan. And like my family showed up like an hour and 15 minutes late, just sort of like just breezed in.
Mm-hmm. Just like, now, I will say I am enamored by your parents' loyalty to Midori. I like that they did not break plans.
Totally. And they did move. They like the lunch where they were eating was close, but my dad texted me being like, he was like, yeah, maybe a quick lunch. And as soon as he sat down, he texted me like, this is like a ceremonial lunch where it's like 17 courses and stuff like that. And he's
I like that's a nice heads up. That's a very thoughtful heads up.
It was very thoughtful. Yeah. It was very thoughtful. But my dad was like, there might be a different ambassador in Japan by the time this lunch is over. You know, like, I don't know.
Is your dad funny?
Not intentionally, but every so often he lands on a joke and lives in it for like 5 years. Do you know what I mean? He'll be like, he'll accidentally do something funny, and so he knows it's funny. Like, my dad's favorite joke is snoo.
No. What's
I don't
snoo?
know. I don't know. What's new with you, Seth?
Oh, Jesus. By the way, Josh and I almost made it without asking.
Yeah. I mean,
we kept waiting. By the way, no one's ever made you wait longer to have to.
I was like Southern New Hampshire University. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know, Seth. What's new with you? I mean, like,
my father-in-law and my brother-in-law just walk around like quoting Ace Ventura.
No, they do not.
They do. And like now my kids, do. Like the amount they're like, alrighty then. And I'm like, God damn it. Sucks so
That's
much.
So funny.
They're the best. But they really, like literally their entire like comedy touchstones are like Jim Carrey movies from like 92 to 99.
Do you have any weird, like, it's so funny. When I think of family trips now, I'm thinking of so many like outlier memories. Like, I could tell you the exact date our family took a trip to Paris because I remember watching TV and Dale Earnhardt died. Like, that was like, I remember watching a TV in Paris and Dale Earnhardt, they were like the news, and I was like weirdly despondent at like 12 years old about like Dale Earnhardt's dying. And then
like, all the restaurants were closed in Paris for like the week, right?
Yeah.
On the Earnhardt, on the Dale news.
Paris lowered its checkered flags to half mast for that. They lowered their Breton stripes to half mast. But yeah, like I think I could tell you about all of these, like all these trips based on like one weird outlier memory with, you know, like, but gosh, even like going to the Montreal Expos games, like I mentioned, we went on a I remember it was like dog day at the Expos, and the Expos were so bad. This is like 2 years before they moved or something like that. And there were more dogs than people at the ballpark. Because people were bringing multiple dogs. So there were like, you know, like 10,000 people, but like 12,000 dogs, you know? And one lady brought 8 of them, you know, like it was
that
like,
must be, when you're playing in a game like that, you must be like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah. It's just like, imagine me.
Hey, we're going to take a quick break and hear from some of our sponsors. This episode of Family Trips is brought to you by McDonald's. Hey, Poshy.
Yes, Sufi.
You know, I've often got a whole family in my car.
Yeah. You got a lot of kids.
Yeah, I also don't have to tell you, this podcast is about family trips, and one of the key things about a family trip is keeping them fed. And sometimes you're on the road and everybody's hungry, and you just time is of the essence, my man. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Time.
I do. I hear you.
And what I love about the McDonald's app is you can order your food in advance. You can sense that this window is about to close where you can feed your children and they will not melt down. And what I love about the McDonald's app, amazing deals all the time, Poshy. Free medium fries, or sometimes even a QPC BOGO deal. BOGO, you know what BOGO is, Posh?
Buy one, get one.
Buy one, get one. And that's great because I buy one for one kid, another one gets one, and the third one fends for themselves.
That's how you find out who's the strongest.
Yeah, downloading the McDonald's app is a no-brainer because you get a new deal every single day. I would say the most important time for us, like 3. If it's 3 p.m., and we maybe we had too early a breakfast before we got on the road. Mm-hmm. And then the kids decided because of that early breakfast, they had to have way too early a lunch, right? It's like 10:40, they're eating lunch. And now all of a sudden it's 3 and you're just like, we're not going to make it. We got to get some food in their bellies. And that's when we love McDonald's. We love saving money. It's a match made in heaven.
Save money every day with the McDonald's app. Must opt in for rewards.
This episode of Family Trips is supported by the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. Hey, Pashi.
Yeah, Sufi.
From muddy jungle paths and snowy trails to rolling sand dunes, the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has the capability to take you to some of the most epic destinations on Earth.
Oh man, we are excited to once again partner with Nissan because, as our listeners know, this podcast, Family Trips, is occasionally a podcast about trips and about the joy of having adventures and exploring new places, and making memories.
And if you're one of our listeners who doesn't know the podcast is called that, what is the holdup? There's no better vehicle for chasing bigger, better, more exciting adventures than the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder with 7 drive modes. The Pathfinder's available intelligent 4-wheel drive is built for even the most epic journeys.
This thing can tow. A Nissan Pathfinder can tow, Suf, so you can bring the fun with you.
Yeah. How many pounds would you say?
6 thou.
Oh boy, that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun to tow. Nissan also knows it's not just about where you go in a Pathfinder. The real fun comes from getting there.
Ooh, now that is well said, Sufi.
Thank you.
Whether getting there is a new physical place or just the end of an amazing story told by one of our guests.
That's why we're excited to partner with Nissan to celebrate adventures everywhere.
So thanks again to Nissan for supporting Family Trips and for the reminder to chase bigger, better, more exciting adventures. And enjoy the ride along the way. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
Intelligent 4-wheel drive cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions. Towing capacity varies by configuration. See Nissan Towing Guide and Owner's Manual for additional information. Always secure cargo.
Here we go.
When you guys traveled, how would the boys split up? Did you all share a room?
2 of us would share a room, and one of us would get a thing, or it would be all 3 of us in a room and the parents in the other, which feels fair. And then as we got older, then it would be 2 boys shared a room with one. Like it was just and the split would be weird. But AJ and I would fight apparently as children. Mm-hmm. So there's always someone there to keep the peace, or we would. But I think the boys shared rooms, which I actually didn't mind sharing rooms with my brothers, but and also on family trips, I could convince my brothers to do a little more adventure. Like I'm the adventure brother, and they're more the sort of like stay and chill brother. So like when we were in Japan last, like AJ, my brother AJ knows Japan very well. Like he trained there for the Olympics and like is a real like really loves Japan and speaks like enough Japanese to order at a restaurant or get into a taxi somewhere. And so AJ, who really knows his stuff Japan wise, like we're able to convince him to come out with us and like go to different places. But the problem is he's such a comfortable local that he was like, oh, we're gonna have the best thing to eat. And I was like, oh my God, amazing. Then we went to like a 7-Eleven and he buys like a ball of like tuna and rice. And I was like, AJ, no, like I don't. He's like, no, it's way better here than it is in America. And I'm like, no, but I'm in Japan, so I really want to go to like some weird bar or something like that. He's like, but the 7-Eleven stuff is like pretty much the same level of quality or higher than the 7-Eleven and stuff you get at home. And I was like, no, AJ, that's not the thing I want to see in Japan.
I definitely had 7-Eleven sushi when I was in Japan.
Oh my God. And it's really good.
Yeah.
It's good for 7-Eleven and it's good but like if anyone's ever like it's the best sushi, I'm like, it's not the best sushi. You're gonna like find it better in some weird hole in the wall. Like shut up.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to come home. And by the way, nobody is impressed when you come home and you're like, their 7-Elevens are so because again, I'm not looking to go I'm not like my biggest problem with America is not like, oh, I wish the 7-Elevens were a little better.
I wish the 7-Elevens had better sushi. I wish
just
the
like,
sushi selection at my 7-Eleven was just
You know how
better.
you're at 7-Eleven and you're craving sushi and you're like, I'm not going to get it here? Well, that's not a problem in Japan.
Israel is... Hey, here's my question. What's the weirdest outlier place that you guys have been like a load of times on family trips? Like more than you'd think?
I don't know. We
didn't really double up.
Yeah, we did not
Really?
double up much.
We didn't
Yeah.
go to the same place very often.
We went to Salt Lake City a lot.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Why?
To ski at Alta.
Okay.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right, that's good.
And we'd stay at like the one okay hotel in Salt Lake City at the time. Now I'm sure there are more, but like we've been to, and then my little brother moved there for work. And so I've been to Salt Lake City as a family trip quite a bit.
If 15 years ago we'd seen the three Edelman boys on skis, would we all been able to pick which one would be a Winter Olympian?
Yes.
Okay.
And it wouldn't have been me. I ski. You know, the funny thing is, I think this says a lot about me. I am really good at the very difficult courses that go through the trees narrowly, but I get really panicked on the big, wide open mountain faces. I get intimidated by the choice in the scale of the mountain and the possibility that not seeing exist. So if I can focus like this, I'm great. But if I have to like look around and see if like something there, if I can see for a half mile in front of me, I'm like freaked out. It's like probably a really good metaphor for creativity, where if it's like, if I can see the one task in front of me, I can absolutely do it. But if they're like, in 10 minutes, you're going to have to do that. I'm like, I don't want to do that in 10 minutes. I want to do this thing in 30 seconds. Or if I do it wrong, I might die. Like, it's a really, but AJ's a really good skier. Austin's an amazing skier, like a really, really incredible. And then, by the way, when AJ was qualifying for the Olympics, we took a family trip to St. Moritz, which was really like,
cool.
Really funny, really fun. And my parents like were so happy to be there for a purpose that we weirdly like I remember like this sums up my parents so well. I have a bunch of pictures on my phone of my mom and dad in the back of a fish restaurant they enjoyed in St. Moritz. They hit it off with the maitre d', and he took them to the back to like see where they keep all the fish and stuff. And so I have all these like photos of like Cheryl and Eleazar Edelman like standing in the back of like a Swiss fish restaurant, just with like their arm around, you know, like Gabor, you know, like just like.
No, I wouldn't have thought, you know, am I ignorant to think like when you go to Switzerland, you gotta get the fish? Like, am I?
We gotta get the fish everywhere because my parents, here's what makes family trips complicated. My parents are kosher.
Gotcha.
So like, there's got to be fish options or vegetarian options or vegan options, Josh, or kosher options. And if not, no bueno. Like my parents can't just like go anywhere. They've got to go to a place where there's like stuff they can eat. So if they're going to a place for a reason other than we picked the kosher restaurant, like it's got to be a fish place, because fish you can get kosher pretty much, you know, anywhere. As long as they're serving like tuna, salmon, there's a way to get fish kosher. But like if you're in St. Moritz, I don't know how many kosher restaurants there are in St. Moritz. They can't just like walk into a little place that looks nice.
Yeah, I would guess 0. I would say it would be
probably.
Was there any expectation when you were young that you and your siblings would eat kosher?
Oh yeah, I didn't eat a non-kosher place until I was, you know, like working on the Red Sox.
And did you cop to that? You were like, hey, it was Hot Dog City today at the ballpark.
I wouldn't rub it in their face. I wouldn't come home smelling of bacon.
It is really funny if you like kept kosher and you were like, and then it was a Fenway Frank. Like I broke it. I broke kosher for a middle of the road, if not below the road.
It was the 7-Eleven sushi but by the way, I still have never had bacon. I've never had shellfish.
All right.
I'm like, I still keep like a modicum of kosher, but being a touring comedian, even more than that, I was like, this is not going to work. You know, like I can't like only eat fish for 6 months or something like that, where I'm like on the road in Scotland. And it's like, yeah, my parents are still like, they always find the place. And I've gone through big stretches where I only eat like kosher and strictly kosher too for like a little while. And it's like, it's a very possible dream, but like it does suck to go to like Paris and they're like on a family trip. And even as a kid, I'm walking around being like, that place looks pretty good. That place looks pretty good. That place looks pretty good. And they're like, no, we're going to this place. And you walk in and it's got like the feel of like a Scottsdale Marriott restaurant. And you're like, God damn it. Like, you know, like it's such a shame because wherever you go, there's still the same food that tastes the same as the chicken you have in Brookline, Massachusetts. And your parents were like, no, this is really great. And you're like, this isn't great. This is average.
Yeah, great's right down the street.
Yeah, great's down the... There was literally, we walked by... I remember when I was 10 years old or 11 years old, like walking by some French bistro in like Paris. And like there was a like woman outside who literally looked like she'd been pulled out of like a cartoon. She was just like in her 60s, but she had like one of those cigarettes in the long holders. And she was like smoking while she ate her steak. And there was a wine in front of her. And I was like, oh man, I want to do that. And my parents took us into like a kosher restaurant and everybody in there was like from New Jersey. And I was like, oh, I'm going to literally die if this is like, if this is my upbringing, if but that's the thing. Like I always I wanted non-homogenous environments. And so like family trips were like really amazing for that in some respects. But every so often you get invited to be like, all right, kids, time to go to the place where all the other American kosher tourists are, you know?
Yeah.
But then the rest of the trip, I mean, I guess it's ultimately it only just hamstrings you at mealtime. Like it seemed like your parents were incredibly adventurous and wanted their kids to see the world.
Totally. We did, by the way, a kosher cruise to Alaska. That's a really memorable family trip. It's also where I think had like one of my first kisses with another girl. I don't know. How embarrassing should we get on this?
But yeah.
I mean, how embarrassing is your first kiss?
I had like a full relationship with this girl who was also like the same age on this like boat.
How old are we?
I want to say we're 16, but the truth is we're like 18, I think. We're like,
you can say 16, but we all know. Say 16, but we'll all know 18.
Yeah.
I think
Sam, can you take out where he said 18?
yeah.
But then leave in where I said 18.
Oh my God. And I was really into this girl, and we became convinced without any of us ever losing either of our clothes that she somehow could conceivably be pregnant.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because different rules on a boat.
Yeah.
It's naval rules.
What an indictment of the Brookline High School's sex ed department.
Oh, the Brookline Yeshiva High Schools.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's what, during sex ed at our Yeshiva High School, Ariel Diamond leaned back in a way that got a laugh. It's not embarrassing that he said it. It's embarrassing that he said it all cool. He went, when are we going to need any of this stuff? Thinking that, and everyone was like, yeah, I mean, like, he's right. Like, when are we ever going to need sex, you know?
Yeah.
We need sex ed. All of us are going to be like virgins, like cool virgins the rest of our lives.
In what world, and which timeline does this come into play?
Yeah. What, sex? We're 17. Why would we need sex ed? Jesus. It's crazy.
So you both felt this panic, you and your boat wife.
She started the panic. I bought into it so enthusiastically, and I told my physician father, who has worked in like Boston hospitals for a very long time, that I was like, I may have gotten someone pregnant. And my dad was like, okay. And I was like, and he's like, I didn't know you were like having sex. I was like, no, we didn't have sex. And I was like, what? And I was like,
then you're good.
Well, and my dad was like, Alex, like I could see him like laughing at me. And I was like, but what? And he was like, we'd have to call this kid Houdini. Like if this, he's like, if you got this girl pregnant, like that kid needs to be born. You know, like, it's truly an immaculate.
Do you feel like he was more relieved that you hadn't got her pregnant or more disappointed that you didn't know how it worked?
I think he was more disappointed in my anxiety that refused to abate.
Yeah.
But it was by the way, I think this is a weird and funny coda now, but at the time I was furious. The girl didn't tell me she had her period for a couple of months because she was worried we would stop speaking after that. So we
Okay,
left the
gotcha.
boat, and I was like, it was like really weird, insane. It's something that only happens to a teenager.
And you're still with her, right?
Yeah, that's my wife. We have no children. We've never had sex. We have no children. Our sexual activity is limited to dry humping on boats or whatever.
She will only do it on a boat, and we still keep her clothes on. But she's the
it's like-
best. She's my
She
angel.
loves the lonely island, but yeah.
All right. So we first of all, this is I want you to know this sincerely. I feel like we've really only scratched the surface of your family trips, and you might be the first guest we're gonna ask to come back on. And you know what? I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna own it, Josh.
Oh,
I blew it. I blew it talking about Steve Sweeney.
Wait,
Because
did we? I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that.
no.
No, it's my fault, and I just like you are like the depth and wealth of these family trips are wonderful. But we are gonna let you go, and Josh is gonna ask you some questions before we do.
Okay.
Okay.
I feel like I feel like I should have been more focused on my ADHD.
No, you did it great. And let me
no,
say,
please.
you know what you did that my mom is really gonna appreciate?
What?
You said family trips a lot. I think she really likes that.
Yeah. Because that's what we need. We need recognition of, the title.
Because I really liked. I listened to the Pamela Adlon episode last week, and she was so focused. And like Patton, when I read his when I listened to his episode, he was really good. So now I'm just like,
No, I'm telling
regrets,
you.
No regrets.
I'm mostly just saying,
no.
like, I just feel like you've got another hour of family trips in you, and this has been such a delight.
I
You
mean,
should be honored that we're talking about having you back. Like, we've never done it.
I so want to come back. I would so love that,
Great.
but I feel bad for my lack of focus, and I feel
Please. No, you're great. You're great. We got some quick questions.
Please.
You can only pick one of these. Is your ideal vacation relaxing, adventurous, or educational?
adventurous.
Yeah, adventurous.
What's your favorite means of transportation? Train, plane, automobile, boat, bike, walking, etc.
It depends on the city,
Okay.
right? Amsterdam's a bike city. Venice
Yep.
is a boat city,
Mm-hmm.
right? But generally,
Boston rollerblades.
Or
We
duck
established.
rollerblade city, but
duck boat, rollerblades.
Yeah,
It's
right,
one or
duck
the
boat.
other.
but generally train.
Yeah.
I think trains, like amazing train cities or train countries, like the best family trip we ever took was to Peru. We did Machu Picchu, and we took the
Yeah.
train from Urubamba to Machu Picchu, and just like taking this like old school train through the rainforest. It's just like one of the coolest things. I'll never forget it as long as I live.
I'm glad
So,
we
like,
didn't talk about it.
You know what? These things come back to you in spurts.
Yeah, I get
yeah,
it.
that's fair.
Look, I'm never gonna hear the end of this one from Josh.
It was
if
really
you could-
incredible, full of lavish detail, and
Really, and the thing I remember about it made all the other family trips we ever took uninteresting.
If you could take a vacation with any family, alive or dead, fictional or real, other than your own family, what family would you like to take a family vacation with?
the Swiss Family Robinson, I'm sure, gets mentioned a good amount, don't they?
Not a
think
ton,
that's only
but they
the
have
second
been
one.
mentioned. Yeah.
I think that
People
might be
love the Swiss Family Robinson, but it does feel like they made it work. This like huge, amazing tropical thing. They were so industrious. They like were able to like, they totally nailed this assignment of being like shipwrecked on this island, and they put together this like weird little island paradise. So the Swiss Family Robinson seems pretty sick. And in terms of like a real life family, I think imagine being on a vacation with like the early Rockefellers or like the early Rothschilds when like the Grand Tour was still a thing, and like people were going to like Egypt from Europe for the first time, or like had the ability to like go to Italy. Like I think a lot of these ideas come from fiction, but like, and I have such crazy fiction wanderlust, but like the idea of being like with a rich person, like that's my love of trains. Like like whenever you watch the Porra movies, like the Branagh movies or the earlier ones, like you're like, oh my God, to be rich in the 1800s or the early 1900s and like traveling by rail through Europe, like
with trunks, with like trunks of new clothes,
with trunks that you don't have to carry,
or touch. You never even touch a trunk.
No, you get like 4-hour breakfasts in your private car with handmade hot chocolate. Like that's the freaking life, you know. Like that's what you want.
If you had to be stranded on a desert island with one member of your family, who would it be?
Well, I could say my brother AJ for endless debate. But no, if I want to be stranded, you know what? I never get tired of talking to my dad.
All right.
And by the way, I say that I don't talk to him enough. He always reminds me. Whenever I call him, one of his jokes will be like, "Who's this?" I'll be like, "Alex." He'll be like, "Alex," and I'll be like, "Yes, your son." He's like, "Oh, my son. I know I have several sons, but this one so rarely goes." Or like
and then he tells you what's new.
Oh my God! By the way, I fall for it intentionally every couple of years just to give him a thrill. I'll be like, "Dad, how's it going?" He'll be like, Snoo.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, today's not your day, Dad. You don't get it. But yeah, my father's and he's an engineer, so he builds things.
Great. You're from Brookline. Would you recommend Brookline as a vacation destination?
You know what? Not joking, like 1,000%.
Great.
Like genuinely, you know what's so funny? Mark Cates, who's a really great guy.
Yeah. Fenway Recordings, yeah.
Fenway Recordings. Mark Cates is a music manager. He manages MGMT. He's like a really good buddy of mine from Brookline and lived in LA and moved back to Brookline with his family because he wanted to raise his kids there instead of like making them LA pukes. And he wanted to like be able to walk to Fenway, which he does. And Mark was on a tour of Japan with MGMT and went like all over Japan for a month and then came home and found a new ramen place that had opened in this arcade in Brookline underneath his office, like directly underneath his office at the time, and went to the ramen place, which was opened by a couple from Hokkaido, and said, I ate ramen every day in Japan for a month at the most authentic Japanese places. I came home to Brookline, went downstairs, and had the best bowl of ramen I'd had in years. Which is like
there we go. Points Brookline.
Brookline's become weirdly like a place to open like their new businesses. It's like it's close to Boston. There's like stuff to do, but like I mean, it's not Paris. And but yeah, I make an effort to get home to Brookline just to hang out sometimes when I'm feeling a little fatigued. I'll just like go home. BJ Novak's got the same approach. He'll just like head back a couple of days. But,
oh yeah, you're nowhere close to the most famous person in Brookline.
Not even close. BJ's Newton, so I got a little bit of
that's
grace,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, the other one who's famous from Brookline is John F. Kennedy. So
right. So even Conan's looking up.
Yeah. Seth has our final two questions.
Alex, you've been to the Grand Canyon. Do you not remember if you've been to the Grand Canyon?
I have driven by it, but not enough to like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So we're not going to count it. Do you want to go?
Desperately.
Okay, great. I felt based on your love of adventure, you would say that.
A secret trip that people know about but don't really do is slot canyon country. Like again, like these big wide open canyons everybody knows about. Like the Grand Canyon's amazing, but there's a place called Antelope Canyon in Page, Arizona, which is the coolest place I have ever been. And it's this gorgeous kaleidoscope of like different colored stone, and the canyon's very narrow. Some places only big. And so like I've always preferred slot canyons to huge ones. So like Utah, Arizona, those places are lousy with them. But like everyone knows about the Grand Canyon, but I highly recommend Antelope Canyon, which is on Native American land in Page, Arizona. Such an incredible place.
I mean, on top of everything else, the fact that Alex sort of finished up with the best answer about canyons we've ever had. Yeah. I don't know when it's going to happen, but for everybody listening, like we hope you enjoyed this and do stick around maybe a year from now, maybe sooner for Alex Edelman Part 2.
I don't want to wait a year from now. I've got a special to plug and to consider.
Right. Oh, by the way, just for us,
write a new special.
Just for us is so wonderful. And I'm sorry, I am gonna prompt you into the hardest. I laugh very hard, but you again talking about your brother, talking about him doing the skeleton, national team. Israel. You had a nickname for him, and then your mom told you to stop, and you came up with a better nickname.
That's right. We used to call him the Frozen Chosen. But eventually my mom was like, stop calling him that. And so then I switched over to Shul Runnings, which is really one of my faves. But guys, this is such a pleasure. And Seth, not to embarrass you here, but I would be remiss if I didn't say what a huge influence you were on me as a young person, comedically. And so if you watch the special, there are a few people like this. But if you watch the special, I really hope you can see your fingerprints on it in terms of like writing wise, and even a little bit, as I am lovingly teased for by others, performance wise. But like, yeah, really big.
Well, that is an incredibly high compliment, because it is the kind of special, and I mean this as the highest compliment. It makes me jealous.
That's so nice.
There you go. That's all you can ask for.
That's so nice.
Thank you, Alex. It has just been wonderful.
Family trips with the Myers brothers.